Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Today we have a brand new set of great stories for you to enjoy. Subscribe to our channel if you're new here, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Sit comfortably. Here we go. No problem. I'll print that video for you, and while I'm at it, I might have you fired as well. Context. This happened a few years ago. I was 18 and working as a receptionist for a community nursing service. As the youngest in the team by a long shot, the average age of employees being around 55 to 60, I was usually the one responsible for the computer stuff. Mostly just simple things, nothing a quick Google couldn't solve. The other staff members were wonderful and I learned a lot from working with them. Except for the assistant manager, Karen. This woman was the bane of my existence. She was 75 plus, recently came out of a 15-year retirement as a receptionist, and was armed with a certificate in business management from a 4-hour online course. She refused to use basic computer skills such as Word or email, stating she didn't need to learn them again when she had others to do it for her, namely me. In a 5-hour shift, I would spend 3 hours just fielding her tasks. Needless to say, this came along with all the fun personality traits that made a manager from hell. Malicious compliance. At the start of my shift, I received an email from Karen asking me to print the attached files. One was a PDF and the other an MP4. So assuming she meant just the PDF, I take the printed copy to her. This is roughly how the exchange went. Karen: "Why do you only have one file? I sent two." Me: "You want me to print an MP4? Karen: "Isn't that what I asked? A monkey could do your job and probably be better at it." Here, I'm pretty sure she laughed at her own joke. Me, desperate: "Look, I don't think you understand." Karen: "Don't try to teach me. Don't forget I did your job for 20 years, and now I could have you fired." Already over it, and ready for some malicious compliance. Me: "Okay, well, I've never printed this type of file before, so it might take a while." Karen interrupts. "I don't care how long it takes. I'm your boss, and I've told you to do this. Once it's done, you can move on to the other jobs." I'm grinning from ear to ear at this point. I get back to my desk and send her an email summarizing our conversation and explicitly clarifying she wanted me to print an MP4, to which I got a snarky reply. Perfect. I spent the next 4 to 5 hours pausing the video every 2 to 3 frames, screenshotting it, pasting it into a Word document, and printing. The administrative tasks piled up. Not that Karen noticed, because she mostly spent her time reading magazines and talking on the phone. I felt bad as this placed an extra load on the other receptionists. However, since Karen was universally hated, they gave me their blessings. Once complete, I took about 100 pages, carefully held with clips to her desk, and sweetly told her that I had printed the other file. She looked smug until she saw what was in front of her. Page after page of almost the same picture as the man moves through the video, some slightly blurry, all in full color. She was furious to say the least, but I was 1 hour overtime on my shift, and Karen knew that would already cause her some issues, so she let me leave. Though I knew it wasn't over yet. As expected, I get called into HR for a meeting the following week where they accused me of wasting company time and not complying with management. I explained the situation in detail and showed them the email, including her awful reply. I also showed them a few more emails and texts where Karen used some particularly descriptive words to insult our staff members, including the very HR rep taking my interview. Turns out this was the straw that broke the camel's back, as Karen had multiple reports against her from other staff members, and she'd been driving HR insane with her own complaints. She lost her job the following week. The best part is that this happened on a Sunday where I got double pay. I took some of that sweet overtime cash and brought in cupcakes to work once Karen was gone. I said it was an end-of-the-week treat, but we all knew what we were celebrating. The HR rep seemed to particularly enjoy hers. And our next story. "You'd better rectify this effing mess you've caused." Okay, but you're not gonna like the result. Bit of background. I'd been working for a kick-butt, medium-sized IT company for about 4 years. I had a good track record, but had moved to a department that didn't really fit my skills, and very tall director told me I wasn't needed anymore. I thought I was out of a job completely, but managing director called me in, told me that the company needed to implement ISO 9000, a quality standard that aims to formalize all those processes and roles that contribute directly and indirectly to the quality of the company's products. He offered me a job partnering up with an external consultant, hereafter consultant. Consultant would project manage the effort, while I was to be his assistant and full-time liaison person within the company. I later learned that consultant was a personal friend of managing director. Of course, I said yes. Consultant was a nice enough person, but it soon became clear that he was out of his depth with the complexities of the project. Luckily, I had a coach, my brother-in-law, who was very experienced in this area and saw the warning signs when I talked about what we were doing. Within the company, there was a lot of skepticism because an earlier failed project titled Quality Without Limits that soon became Limits Without Quality. So this time around, we needed credibility, some quick visible wins, and senior management backing. However, the managing director left the company, and that kind of screwed up the senior management backing for consultant. Worse, the new CEO was the very tall director, hereafter very tall CEO, who'd fired me earlier, and although he knew it was important, he didn't really want any involvement in the ISO 9000 project. Fast forward a couple of months, and we haven't really achieved much. My relationship with consultant is getting a bit strained, as I start wondering if I might become collateral damage of his lack of skills and leadership. Consultant asked me to book a few grand's worth of training for the two of us. I had to do it by a certain date. The date passed. He asked about the training. I said I hadn't booked it. He blew up to level 5 and demanded to know why. I said I didn't think he'd secured sufficient commitment from management to spend that much, and I didn't want to get stuck with an unauthorized spend. Now he's at level 10, and the crap started flying. I was a bit taller than him, and he wanted to go into uber domination mode, so... Consultant. Sit down. Me. I'm comfortable standing, thanks. Sit down. I'll stay here. Sit the F down. Me. Shaking a bit, but outwardly calm. I'm good. Consultant. You need to get yourself to the effing CEO, explain your failure to book the training, and that you're the reason we're going to miss our first big deadline, and rectify this effing mess you've caused. I really didn't know what very tall CEO would do, and that there was a very good chance I'd get thrown off the project and fired. Again. But it was time to come clean. So here's how I obeyed the rectify this effing mess instruction. I got a meeting same day with very tall CEO and told him that we had barely achieved anything over the several months the project had been running. I said that consultant was inept, hadn't grasped the basic concepts of the project, and that with him in the project manager role, it was destined for an expensive failure. I told him about the sit down episode. I also told very tall CEO of another person in the company who'd I'd approached obliquely earlier in the week, who I reckoned would be a perfect fit for the project manager role. This was late on Friday, and very tall CEO said, "Leave it with me," and told me not to turn up till noon on Monday. I absolutely didn't know what was going to happen, and that weekend was really stressful. Monday morning, I get a call from consultant, which I ignore, nerves shredding. Now it's noon on Monday, and I'm in the building. I'm kind of bricking it. I'm outside the very tall CEO's office, and he's there with the guy I suggested should be the new project manager. Good sign. They're laughing about something. Another good sign. I walk in. Very tall CEO. "Hi, I'd like to meet your new boss." Me, thinking, crap, that went well. Excellent. What happened? Very tall CEO. "Well, I called the consultant into this office this morning, and we had a chat." Me, warming up. "And?" Very tall CEO. "I told him we needed a serious talk about the project and invited him to sit down. He started getting agitated and declined. I asked again. He refused. I said, either you sit down or leave the building right now. Consultant sat down and I explained I wanted to make some changes. Net, he left the building with all his stuff anyway an hour later, but only after I told him why we didn't want him any longer." Me, empty speech bubbles coming out of my mouth. Very tall CEO. "Thought you might like the bit about him sitting down." Me, still speechless. New boss to me. "Okay, come on, let's have a catch-up." I was on frickin' cloud 9 for a few days, and new boss was an absolute star, and I learned a ton from him. ISO 9000 certification followed, and that project success opened up very interesting doors later. And our last story. No overtime moving forward. I used to be an hourly developer contractor at a major financial services firm, and specifically focused on developing various tools and automation within a language called Perl. For those that don't know, Perl is very unique looking and isn't terribly easy to read, but it could do quite a bit. Anyway, I probably had about 50 various Perl applications and scripts running across the various teams, and while most of them were not mission critical, there was one that was absolutely critical. A big part of my day was developing new things based on various automation requests, and the other part of my day was focused on keeping the existing stuff running as upstream data sources would change, etc. Now, I wasn't terribly expensive, but did have to bill them about 45 hours in straight time a week, while actually working about 50, where I'd be at my desk by 8 a.m. and out the door by 5:30 or 6 in order to keep up with demand. There wasn't any time and a half or any other kind of rate increase once I went over 40 hours. Anyway, my boss was awful and went on a huge power trip one day and declared loudly that she was taking over reviewing my timesheet from her boss, and there was no overtime moving forward. 8 hours a day, and that's it. Up to this point, I'd been giving them free hours each week and worked really hard, so this declaration completely rubbed me the wrong way. Flash forward to a couple days later, my most critical application crashed at around 3 p.m. because its upstream data feed had completely changed and that system owner hadn't notified me or participated within any other change control process. Once folks realized it was down, my boss and her boss appeared at my desk and watched over my shoulders in panic as I started updating my code to deal with the new structure. I found what the problem was and started on a new version. Then 4 p.m. hit. As they stared at my monitor, I locked my computer, grabbed my jacket, and started walking out. Their look of surprise and panic was met with me stating as I walked out, "I'm only allowed 8 hours a day, that's the rule." I can't imagine what happened after I left that day, but when I came into the office the next day, my boss's boss saw me, pulled me aside, explained that I was now allowed to work and bill whatever hours that were needed, and he would be taking over my timesheet again. Extra bonus. I left the job a few months later, and a couple months after that, the entire office got laid off, about 200 people, except for one mainframe guy and the guy that I hired to replace me and maintain my code. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one.